Hallo, ich begrüße euch bei Language Place. Heute sind wir wieder da, Gott sei Dank. Und heute haben wir vor uns die reflexive Verben. Okay, bleibt dran. I welcome you to this class again. Language Place welcomes you. And today we have this wonderful topic, the reflexive verbs, before us. Stay with me, you're going to enjoy it. So we're going to start. Reflexive verbs actually means the verbs that is reflecting back to the user. It's a different thing to say, I wash a plate. It's another thing to say, I wash myself. So that of myself is reflecting back to me, and that is the verb we refer to as reflexive verbs. And that is what we want to talk about now, the reflexive verbs in German. But we are doing two things together. We are going to talk about reflexive pronouns in the accusative and in the dative. I hope you are used to that now, accusative, dative. So we want to talk about that now. We'll first talk about the reflexive pronouns, and then in the accusative and in the dative, and then we'll now go to the reflexive verbs. Now, we have the table here of the reflexive pronomen. And before we can understand this, we just have to remind ourselves of the personal pronomen, personal pronoun. So we have ich, du, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie, sie. And then we go straight on to the reflexive pronomen. And that is the pronouns that we'll be using to conjugate the reflexive verbs. Without them, the conjugation of reflexive verbs would be faulty. So we start with reflexive pronomen accusative. For ich, we have mich. For du, dich. For sie, es, sich. For wir, uns. For ihr, euch. For sie, sich. As we use this personal pronoun in sentences, we get to know them more. We get used to them. We get to understand them better. So we go straight to that of the dative. And then, of course, you know, in English, we have I, and then we have me, and we have mine, and we have all those ones. So that's why this is also not too strange. We just, by the time we see some examples, we'll be able to identify with them and make use of them correctly in German. Excuse me. Now we have the dative. For the ich, of course, accusative is mich, dative is mir. Du, accusative, dich, dative, dir. For sie, es, reflexive pronomen, sich, and then dative is also sich. For wir, uns, uns. For ihr, euch, euch, and then for sie, we have sich, sich. Now, let's look at the way this personal pronoun, both in the accusative and in the dative, how they function, how they perform, so that we understand that we're not just having the table just for decoration, but that the table is there for us to make use of them. So I come to the accusative. I'm going to use a verb here to demonstrate how reflexive verbs should be conjugated. Now we have this verb, sich freuen. This is the original form of the verb, sich freuen. Sich freuen. And that is the verb, sich freuen. And it means to be pleased. To be pleased with oneself. Yeah? Or to be pleased with, one is just happy, I'm happy with myself and all that. So let's look at the example so that we explain it better. Number one, This is the conjugation. Ich freue mich. Remember, accusative, mich, for ich. And then, du freust dich. Sie, es freut sich. Sich. Wir freuen uns. And then, ihr freut euch. Ihr freut euch. Sie freuen sich. Sich. And we'll go to the dative, so that we also see how the reflexive pronoun, the dative form of reflexive pronouns, how it comes up in these sentences. So the first one, ich ziehe mir eine Jacke an. So, of course, you see the mir here. And of course, this verb controls dative. So, ich ziehe mir eine Jacke an. Don't forget, it's a divisible verb. Trennbaren Verb is one of them. Anziehen. And then the second one, du ziehst dir eine Jacke an. Anziehen is to have it on, to put it on, to get dressed. So, he is dressing up himself. Ich ziehe mir eine Jacke an, with a jacket, with a pullover. And then, du ziehst dir eine Jacke an. Du ziehst dir. If you look at du under the dative, you see dir. And then, sie, es zieht sich eine Jacke an. Sie, es, dative, sich. And once you know that the verb is dative, it becomes easy to fill in the gap and to even use the the reflexive pronoun in sentences or when you speak. Then we go on. Wir ziehen uns Jacken an. Yeah, we'll put it on. Of course, because it is wir, it's not singular, it's now plural. That's why we have en. But then what we are looking for is this. Wir ziehen uns. Wir ziehen uns. And then, ihr zieht euch Jacken an. Ihr zieht euch Jacken an. And then we come to sie ziehen sich Jacken an. Sie ziehen sich Jacken an. One thing you need to know for now is to master this table and to see these sentences, to look at them very well and understand the difference between reflexive pronoun accusative, reflective pronoun dative. And as time goes on, you will get to understand it better. So with that, I want to remind you that the verbs that are reflexive, I want to give you some examples of reflexive verbs, and I have some of them below here. So number one, apart from, of course, we have sich freuen, and then we have, this one is sich anziehen, and then here we have sich verabreden, sich erholen, sich amüsieren, sich beklagen, sich vorstellen, sich bemühen, sich irren, sich beschweren. Now, all these verbs, it's just good you have the list of reflexive verbs. And what you do with them is to conjugate them just as we have sich freuen, and it's now conjugated in the present tense, ich freue mich. So also, you take a verb, any of this one, and you conjugate it just the way sich freuen is conjugated. If you can do that for now, you are doing excellently well. When we do exercises, you will be able to understand better. Okay, with that, we come to a close on reflexive verbs. Don't forget, reflexive verb reflects the action back to the person performing the action. It comes back to the person. And basically, you take note of the reflexive pronouns, if it is accusative or if it is dative. It will be accusative when the verb controls dative. It will be dative when the verb controls dative, and it will be accusative when the verb is one of these normal verbs that does not control or does not attract dative. So, with that, ich kann einfach sagen, machen wir jetzt eine Übung. Okay, bis gleich.